Week 4, Module 1, Print. It's important to think about these different media types and why they still matter, even though many think they are old-fashioned. Today's media buyers tend to be in love with social media, digital media, and even television is somewhat old-fashioned. So this module, or these series of modules, will provide information on the strengths of these different media, even those that are in decline. And it's important to think about that brands who do use these media will actually be reaching people in a context where the competitors may well be absent. And as we shall learn in week 6, adding another media type almost always increases reach and sales effect. Let's start with newspapers. First of all, they tend to be local and they tend to be measured based on their circulation. And a little historical note, newspapers were the reason ad agencies were created to buy the newspaper ad space. The largest newspapers have a national audience. As mentioned, newspaper audiences are measured in terms of the circulation or distribution of the actual copies of print, as well as today, increasingly, of course, from their digital audiences. Historically, most ad revenue came from local retailers, followed by classifieds, but that has changed quite a bit. Consumers spend less time with print, but the branding and sales effects are still strong. This survey from 2019 said that the internet and mobile devices have made it more convenient and inexpensive to get the same content without buying print media in the paper form. Out of the almost 500 minutes people spend consuming media in the average day, only about 16 are spent with the newspaper. But as mentioned, despite the shrinkage in the size of the medium, the sales and branding effect of print both remain strong. And there are bright spots for newspapers that have an online presence, which today is most of them. Many, especially the national papers, have moved to subscription-based access to the online content with considerable success. The digital subscribers for the New York Times represent 90% of their total subscribers. With Wall Street Journal, it's about 2/3. And digital ads account for 1/3 of total ad revenue, 1/4 of which is digital only. The benefits and drawbacks for newspapers in printed form: they offer wide reach. They're obviously very timely. It's a desirable upscale audience. There's a strong impact from the editorial content around the ads that appear. And there are local and regional offerings that make it more flexible for certain advertisers. The drawbacks: it's a short issue life, typically the day. You have a very active reader base who can just turn the page if they're not interested, and they're still primarily a black and white medium. Now for magazines. Again, these are considered to be shrinking, and in many senses they are, but they're also becoming more specialized. Early magazines were aimed at broad audiences, but way back when radio and TV came on the scene, magazines became more niche and specialized. There are more than 7,200 titles available, divided between consumer, business, and farm, with consumer being the vast majority. And still new titles are being launched. In 2021, 122 new titles were launched. And like newspapers, magazines are evaluated in terms of circulation and the audience profile. It may surprise you to hear that Americans of all ages read magazines, even younger ones. And this is a look at the number or percentage of those who've read magazine media in the last 6 months, both print and digital. Affluent households are more likely to read magazines than use any other media type. And in 2021, magazine audiences actually held steady. There was a drop from pre-COVID, but from 2020 to 2021, the total number of adults who read magazines was pretty much flat. But today, 61% of magazine readership is actually not in printed form, and that's a shift from years past. Most magazines are sold via subscription, with single copy sales or individual magazines representing a very small proportion of the total number sold. One thing to note about magazines is the readership grows long after publication, so the audience accumulates over time, and this can be an advantage from an advertiser standpoint. Indeed, consumers are also more receptive to magazine ads compared to other media, And when asked through surveys how appropriate the description of these factors were for magazines versus websites versus TV, you can see that magazines were considered to hold more of their attention to the ads, be more inspirational, trustworthy, life-enhancing, provide a personal timeout, and offer a chance for social interaction. Now, why do magazine ads work? Well, neurological studies show that when people are reading things in printed form, they tend to be more focused, less distracted, have higher comprehension and recall, have their emotions and desires stimulated, slow down the speed at which they read, gather sensory involvement, and are actually preferred by many people. The benefits of magazines that provide upscale and niche audiences. Ads in magazine can get attention. The magazine ads provides a long issue life with the chance for repeat exposure, and magazines are a shareable media type. The drawbacks: in the printed form, it's a long planning cycle, and despite all the efforts of the magazine industry, overall, the print audience in paper form is in decline. Print does remain a visual and tactile media channel. As Bill Harvey, an industry legend and consultant, said, "The thing I still love about magazines is their look, feel, and the quality of the experience I have with them. A video makes me go at its pace, where with a magazine, I am going at my own pace. I am in total control." And the second quote: "When advertising is not trying to seize my attention, I can casually run my eyes over every item on every page without having to practice the eye avoidance engendered by digital." Just something to keep in mind. Indeed, studies have also demonstrated a strong financial return for print investment. Nielsen NCS did extensive work to measure the return on ad spend for magazines. So when the brand ads were inserted in specific issues of the magazine, they could then measure the change in purchases made by those people who received those ads. And the control group was people who did not receive those ads. And they found that magazines offer the highest return on ad spend compared to all other media channels, as you can see in the green bars on the left. And when this data was updated in 2021, it still showed print having the highest return on ad spend, still slightly higher than linear traditional TV. Next up, audio.